Martha's morning coffee steamed as a battered field notebook thumped onto her farmer's market table. No owner in sight, just scribbled bird sightings and coffee stains. 58. She'd stopped counting species after her son moved out, grief nesting in her chest like invasive ivy. But this? Pages lit with frenetic notes from some urban bird-watching collective, margins crammed with P.S. Eagles nest in Ballard. Lady, get your binoculars. Seattle drizzle blurred ink as she traced a stranger's shaky arrow toward her favorite park. Her Martha's morning coffee steamed as a battered field notebook flopped open, its spine cracked like sidewalks after winter frost. She bought it decades ago on a whim during a college ecology class, back when saving world felt as simple as scribbling observations under lecture hall fluorescents. Now, 58, her hands hesitated over blank pages. What could one woman tally that might matter? Outside, a lone crow cawed, its rasp echoing hollow ache in her chest whenever headlines screamed of melting ice. That sound haunted her, crocra of a world unraveling while she stood by, recycling bin full but heart empty. Then came Flyer Farmers Market, neon pink amid kale bundles, Urban Bird Brigade track. Share. Breathe. A gaggle of women in mud-splattered boots laughed over pastries, their binoculars slung like fashion accessories. Martha's first meetup was a comedy of errors. She misidentified a robin as a thrush, tripped over a root, and got schooled by a 12-year-old on warbler calls. But their hoots of encouragement lit something in her. Week after week, she returned, filling that notebook with sparrow nests wedged in traffic lights, coyote prints stamped in rain-soaked alleys. Each entry was a rebellion against despair, proof that life persisted even here, between concrete and sky. Her deepest fear had always been becoming a bystander in her own story, like those plastic bags snagged in chain-link fences, tossed about by forces too big to fight. But now, ink smudged on her palms, she realized resilience wasn't about grand gestures. It was in way her flock of amateur scientists cheered when a barred owl returned to park and shared thermos of cider passed as they compared data. Notebook. Once a relic of youthful idealism, Martha's morning coffee steamed as a battered field notebook flopped open, its pages ruffled by a breeze carrying salt from Puget Sound. Yesterday's scribbles, crow with wonky feather, 7:23 a.m., Maple Branch felt trivial against headlines screaming wildfires, collapsing ice shelves. But then her thumb grazed a smudged sketch of a Junco's slate gray hood, and something flickered. That plucky little bird had survived last winter's freak hailstorm. Maybe noting such things wasn't pointless after all. She nearly missed flyer tape to her recycling bin. Urban Bird Collective. Farmers Market Meetup. Its edges curled like an invitation. She hesitated. Group activities usually meant forced small talk with millennials who called her ma'am, like it was a medical condition. Still, clutching her notebook like a talisman, she went. Turns out, Seattle's bird nerds were her people. Retired teachers with binoculars older than Martha's Prius, queer grad students who could ID a warbler by its hiccup song, even a former tech bro now obsessed with tracking owl pellets. Their leader, a sinewy woman named Gloria who wore her 70 years like a badge, handed she a laminated chart. Think of it as gossip, she winked. Who's nesting with who, who's cheating on their territory. Nature's juiciest drama. Martha's first solo mission was a disaster. She mistook a pigeon's shadow for a peregrine, tripped over a root, and face-planted into a patch of nettles. But back market, Gloria just cackled and passed her an elderberry tart. Rite of passage, she said, pointing to her own knee, scarred from a legendary tussle with a blackberry thicket. Weeks blurred into a rhythm. Pre-dawn treks to Cary Park, ink smearing as woman-logged robins battling over muffin crumbs, a Cooper's hawk staking out feeder buffets. Her notebook grew fat with observations, its margins sprouting doodles, a heron's lazy blink, Waycrows dunked fries in puddles like tiny garments. Each entry was a rebellion against despair, proof that life stubbornly, gloriously carried on. One drizzly Tuesday, creator spotted something extraordinary, a barred owl, rare this deep in city, perched on a playground slide. Kids shrieked below, oblivious as it yawned, unbothered. She fumbled for her pencil, heart pounding. This was why she showed up. Not to fix whole broken world, but to bear witness to its messy, lit persistence. Owl swiveled its head, stared right her, and Martha swore it nodded, one survivor to another. Martha's morning coffee steamed as a battered field notebook flopped open, its spine cracked from years of stubborn dedication. Outside her Seattle apartment, rain-blurred skyline, but she barely noticed. 58 years of city living hadn't dulled her eye for movement. Just past fire escape, a flash of russet feathers darted between maple branches. Her pencil hovered. Pacific Ren? Doubt not. Last week's misidentified sparrow still burned, but she scribbled anyway. Perfection wasn't point. Showing up was. Farmers market meetups with Urban Bird Collective had started as a fluke, a flyer tacked beside overpriced kale. But now Thursdays meant trading tips with a ragtag crew of baristas, retirees, and one tenacious teen with neon green binoculars. They turned eco-grief into a game. Who could spot first returning junco, track sidewalk moss growth, or document rogue raccoon dens? Data for scientists, sure, but mostly lit fuel for their own stubborn hope. Martha's boots hit wet pavement, notebook tucked under her arm like a shield. She'd spent winters paralyzed by headlines, but counting crows literally anchored her. Today's mission: log invasive species in volunteer park. Halfway uphill, knees protesting, she paused. A rustle in rhododendrons. Probably just a rat. But then, a streak of iridescence. Stellar's jay, bold as brass, staring her down. Her laugh startled a passing dog walker. Back home, ink smudged her fingers as she transcribed notes. One jay didn't fix melting glaciers, but it proved life persisted in cracks. She flipped the notebook's first page, where her shaky early entries mocked her. Progress wasn't pretty. Neither was survival. Rain-tapped window. Martha reached for her pen. Jay would be back tomorrow. So would she. Martha's morning coffee steamed as a battered field notebook flopped open, its pages crammed with hasty sketches of crows and dates circled in red, each mark a tiny rebellion against dread coiled in her chest. For weeks, she tracked urban birds from her Seattle apartment window, a private ritual to quiet gnawing fear that world was unraveling. But today, her pencil hovered over a fresh page. Enough spectating. She marched down to Pike Place Market, notebook clutched like a manifesto, and slapped it onto a communal table between kale bundles and honey jars. Who's counting birds with me? Her voice carried over hum of shoppers, louder than she'd intended. A few heads turned. A guy in a Seahawks cap snorted into his kombucha. She ignored him. Flipping to a map she'd drawn of downtown, she stabbed a finger rooftops and alleys. Sparrows nest here. Crows gossip near Ferry Dock. We document shifts like feathered climate scientists. Her pitch was part fact, part bluff, but hands began reaching for her notebook. By noon, 12 strangers had scribbled sightings and margins, their ink overlapping like bird tracks. Days later, her ragtag crew, retirees, baristas, even skeptical Seahawks cap, gathered under a dripping awning to compare notes. Martha's cheeks burned as she revealed her makeshift data chart. Migration patterns skewed, species vanishing from old haunts. Silence. Then someone whispered, "Damn." Seahawks cap pulled out his phone, zooming in on a blurry shot. Got a varied thrush in my parking lot. Never seen one this far south. Moment lit up faster than a wildfire meme. A local news crew, sniffing a feel-good story, filmed she explaining how tracking birds stitched hope into chaos. Her notebook, now dog-eared and coffee-stained, became a prop. "We're not just watching," she said, thumbing its pages with sly pride. "We're writing story back." Back home, Martha flopped onto her couch, grinning, her phone buzzing with notifications. A wildlife org had reposted her group's findings, dubbing them Lit Nest Climate Warriors in Pacific Northwest. She chuckled, her granddaughter's slang, borrowed like a lucky charm. Outside, a crow cackled from fire escape, as if in on joke. For first time in years, weight in her chest felt lighter than a sparrow's bones. Martha's morning coffee steamed as a battered field notebook flopped open, its pages crammed with scribbles, wing shapes, oddball bird calls, a grocery list for kale. 3 months ago, those notes had been frantic, her grief over melting glaciers scrawled in margins. Now, lit with purpose. Seattle's urban birds didn't care about eco-despair. They just needed someone to notice their nest wedged between AC units. So she did. Her farmers market meetups started as shaky whispers, "Anyone else track crows?" But soon became a rowdy collective of women in sun hats and mismatched socks, binoculars slung like jewelry. They logged starlings stealing fries, ospreys diving for sushi scraps, turning dread into data. Martha, 58, and suddenly queen of this feathery rebellion, guided newbies with a wink. Eyes up, ladies. Climate anxiety can't stick if you're busy counting tail feathers. That notebook? Once a record of loss, now bulged with migration maps and doodles of a bald eagle dubbed Sir Flaps-a-Lot. Proof that action, even silly, small, scribbled action, could rewrite a story. Your turn. Grab binoculars, flip open a journal, and chase hope where it perches. Wild joy waits.